Hi everybody, welcome to This Day in History. This is the show that we do to talk about what happened this day in history in our world. Now, today is the 32nd day of the year. You could either call it January 32nd or you can call it February 1st. Whatever you want to do. Personally, we'll call it February 1st because tomorrow is like Groundhog Day. Alright, so we got a few things to talk about, a few events to talk about. I do want to say, if you are listening to this live, thank you so much for listening to it live. I think we get some extra bonus points for live. However, this is the second take that we've done of this. Normally, we do it live all the time. So you guys, when we set it up, like the 8 o'clock for the show, my phone rings. It automatically has to reboot because my phone ring would get us in trouble with YouTube. So we can't have that. So we're going to do this one more time. Here we go. 1327, a teenage Edward III is crowned King of England, but the country is ruled by his mother, Queen Isabella, and her lover, Roger Mortimer. That happened 1327. All right, the first Peace of Thorn is signed in Thorn, which is in Prussia. 1411. In 1793, the French Revolutionary Wars. French declares war on the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. In 1796, the capital of Upper Canada is moved from Newark to York. In 1861, Texas secedes from the United States. 1865, Texas seceded from 1861. In 1865, Abraham Lincoln signs the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. In 1893, Thomas Edison finishes construction on his first motion picture studio, the Black Maria in West Orange, New Jersey. La Boheme premieres in Turin, conducted by a very young conductor, Arturo Toscanini. And the reason I knew how to say La Boheme or La Boheme is because of the movie Trading Places. So big time thumbs up to Dan Aykroyd for that. Whenever it's his birthday, we'll celebrate. All right. In 1918, Russia adopts a Gregorian calendar. In 1924, the United Kingdom recognizes the USSR. In 1942, the Navy conducts Marshal Gilbert raids, the first offensive action by the United States against Japanese forces in the Pacific Theater. In 1942, the Voice of America, the official external radio and television service of the government, begins broadcasting with programs aimed at areas controlled by the Axis powers. In 1946, Trygve Lie from Norway is picked to be the first United Nations Secretary General. So if you're ever wondering who that was, there you go. Jeopardy question for you guys. All right. In 1946, also, the Parliament of Hungary abolishes the monarchy after 9 centuries and proclaims the Hungarian Republic. 1953, the North Sea flood of 1953 causes by a heavy storm, which occurred overnight, January 31st to February 1st. Flood struck the Netherlands, Belgium, and the UK. In 1964, black students staged the first of the Greensboro sit-ins in a lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. In 1964, the Beatles had their first number one hit in the United States with I Wanna Hold Your Hand. 1965, the Hamilton River in Labrador, Canada is renamed the Churchill River in honor of Winston Churchill. In 1968, Canada's 3 huge, powerful military forces, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Army, and the Royal Canadian Air Force are united into the Canadian Forces. I said that jokingly, by the way, so just heads up. In 1972, Kuala Lumpur becomes a city by royal charter of Malaysia. In 1979, Iranian Ayatollah Khomeini returns to Tehran after nearly 15 years in exile. 1991, there was a collision between the U.S. Air Flight 1493 and SkyWest Flight 5569 at Los Angeles International Airport. 34 people died. Alright, and injuries to 30 others. 1996, the Communications Decency Act is passed by the U.S. Congress. In 2002, Daniel Pearl is beheaded and mutilated by his captors. In 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrates during its re-entry to mission into the Earth's hemisphere, killing all 7 astronauts aboard. In 2012, 74 people are killed and over 500 injured in clashes between fans of 2 Egyptian football teams. 74 killed and 500 injured between 2 football teams. If only the Super Bowl was that crazy. In 2013, the Shard, which is the tallest building in the European Union, is open to the public. That was this day in history for the events. We go to births now. Amadeus the Ninth, Duke of Savoy. I just like the name, so we'll just go with that. But he was born this day in history, 1435. We also got quite a few other people. Louis Saint Laurent, who was the 12th Prime Minister of Canada. It was his birthday this day in history, 1882. Conn Smythe, through this Conn Smythe Trophy. That's kind of an interesting name there when it comes to sports. Yeah, he was born this day in history, 1895. Clark Gable, born 1901. Langston Hughes, born 1902. George Pal, born 1908. And we're getting to that moment where we're going to find the oldest person still living with us here. Ben Weir, who died this year, actually. 1923. Richard Hooker, 1924. All their birthdays today. But the oldest person that we have here on our Wikipedia website was actually born in 1930. Shah bin Ahmed. Hopefully I totally screwed that up. I know I did. But happy birthday to you, the 12th president of Bangladesh. Boris Yeltsin was born this day in history. So was Don Everly, Garrett Morris, Sherman Hemsley. Got to give a big time shout out to George Jefferson, who was born this day in history. Rick James. I love Rick James. He was just great. As we go down the list, we see Jenny Lane was born this day in history, 1974. Sherilyn Fenn was born this day in history. Brandon Lee, Stephanie of Monaco, Pauly Shore, Lisa Marie Presley, Andrew Breitbart. Lots of names that are very famous to me. Names that I've heard. As we go further down the list, Michael C. Hall, born this day in history. We also have, as we go further down this list, we have the new WWE superstar, Rugged Ronda Rousey. Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Born this day in history, 1987. Lauren Conrad, born 1986. Dan Gosling, born this day in 1990. And Harry Styles, born in 1994. Now, deaths celebrated this date in history, or remembered this day in history, not really celebrated. Pope Stephen III died this day in history. So did Pope Alexander VIII. I always kind of remember those, the popes and, big time deals there. Of course, all of the Columbia crew, we remember them dying this day in history. Also, Don Cornelius from Soul Train. Ed Koch died this day in history as well. So that is this day in history for all of that. It is the earliest day that Constitution Day can fall in Mexico. It's the earliest day that where Red Day can fall in the United States, which is actually on tomorrow. It's the first Friday in February. It is the Memorial Day of the Republic in Hungary. It's National Freedom Day in the United States. The start of Black History Month, the start of LGBT Month, it's the start of National Bird Feeding Month. It's Air Force Day in Nicaragua. And just lots of, and in Rwanda, it's Heroes Day. So there you go. Lots of really cool stuff going on this day in history. Thank you all so very much for listening. And we'll see you here real soon on thescottshow.com, where we are live every single day.